Where are we up to? Eisches. Yeah. So this is the chiddush of the avodah of the second parsha of the Shema La'avdai, which explains that even the lowest level of Kabbalah's oil, where the only reason that the Eved is doing it is Eimas ha'adar, in the fear of the Adon, that's the h'tchk, that's the lowest level of the final hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Nonetheless, this is rooted and connected directly to the Yud, which means, since it's connected to the Yud, which is Yir Ilah, which is a bittul suffused with all of the dargis, a bittul that, rather the other way, a bittul that suffuses all the experiences, the love and the pleasure, the rotz and the tainug. So it has a direct connection to that. And the tachlis, again, is the child, the ben, who is an eved. And we said, yesterday we were explaining why that is so. How can the lowest level of Kabbalah's oil, which on the surface is the most obviously selfish level, he doesn't want to do this. And we're saying that the Eved does it, so this is the key, the gateway to the highest levels. Because at the end of the day, he's breaking himself, and that's the Nakuda. And the highest levels of Ben, he doesn't break himself. His Mesiras Nefesh is not breaking himself. He gives up his life with a song. And so, as lofty as it is, it's still bound up with his Metzias and defined by his Metzias. So the tachlis is that the tainug and the rotzen is because you want the tainug and you want the rotzen. And the key to that is not self. So the lowest level of Eved, Kabbalah's oil, that's there. You're not doing this because of you. You can find every excuse and way to get out of this. True, you're doing it because of the fear of the strap.
And in the Ben, you can't have that. I'm doing it and I love it because you love it.
You can or can't.
Can he?
That's what we're saying. The tachlis is a Ben. It was an Eved.
Right. So that's the suffusion of the Ben Eved.
Yeah, that's that tachlis. The tachlis is that the first parsha of the Shema then proceed to the second parsha of the Shema. As we said yesterday, it's not that the second parsha of the Shema supplants and replaces the first parsha. It builds on it. And we explained earlier how the whole Maamer is explaining page after page how the first avodah is critical for what? What does it achieve? The avodah of the Ben. The avodah of the Ben, which a way the avodah of Kabbalah's oil cannot do. Not in a way. The avodah, the maila of the avodah of the Ben that Kabbalah's oil cannot do per se, unless Kabbalah's oil will lead, which inevitably it will, if one is in a state of Kabbalah's oil in a sustained way, it will lead to Ben. But now separating the two, please tell me if you can, what is the avodah, the maila of the avodah of the Ben that the avodah of Kabbalah's oil cannot achieve? It's a whole arichas of the Maamer, the pages of the Maamer till now.
You won't be able to do it at the end of the day. There's a certain level that you'll push and says, no, this much I won't do anymore.
No, I'm asking the opposite. I'm asking the avodah of Ben, the achievement, the accomplishment, the critical necessary accomplishment of the avodah of the Ben that no Kabbalah's oil can achieve. Which is why it's not just Kabbalah's oil and goodbye Charlie. Yes, work on that. No, the Adarab, the first parsha, the first avodah is parsha Rishona, is the avodah of Ben, of Av, etc. So I'm asking, what is it that this avodah accomplishes that Kabbalah's oil cannot do?
It goes to a higher level because it was so low. I'm saying because you didn't want to.
Oh,
Hashem,
no, we're asking the opposite. We're saying
oh,
no, we're asking the opposite. Now we're talking about the avodah of the ben that's higher than the avodah of the eved and achieves something that the eved will never achieve. Kabbalah Soil will never achieve. This has been the main part of the Maamer. The whole to conquer the Zion Umas, to conquer the heart, you can't do that with Kabbalah Soil. In the sense of conquer, you can quench it, but you can't transform it. You can't transform the heart. The heart is all about loves and passion and desire with Kabbalah Soil. You stifle it. You suffocate it with Kabbalah Soil. You ignore it. But that's not the tachlis. The tachlis is part of the avodah is ve'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha b'chol ma'itcha. You can't love with Kabbalah Soil. Love comes from getting to know and being familiar and experiencing. You can't love somebody or something or anything you don't know, you don't experience, you're not familiar with, you don't get to know intimately, you don't share an experience. Kabbalah Soil is not about experience. Kabbalah Soil is bittul. So Kabbalah Soil deals with, and it's critical for the core klippa, which is, what's the core klippa of Amalek? Irrational resistance. Irrational resistance is there's no passion in the world, and no Havana Vasaga is going to be able to counter irrational resistance. I know, I don't care. I'm not interested. Why? I don't know why. Why? There is a reason why. The why is because me. It's me, that's it. Don't talk about, don't tell me about anything other than me. I'm not interested. So that you need Kabbalah Soil. No love and no discussion and no inspiration, no ideology, no fabrengen, nothing's going to help that. But when a person, it's not a question of this fundamental resistance, it's just distracted and the person has loves and desires and passions and a mind, and it's in the wrong places. And it will be in the wrong place if it's not inspired and enlightened by Torah. So that you need inspiration. For that you need inspiration and to learn and daven and fabrengens, and that's all going to some degree or another, shift the koch, the pleasure, the desire, the loves, the fears, the awes from Inyon Ilam Hazeh, from Gashmias himself to Likus. And that needs Shema Yisrael, it needs Yisboninus, it needs Das Elyon, Das Tachten, and then it needs that appreciation of Das Elyon. That's going to move the heart. We're not talking about moving the heart now. Are we clear? So Kabbalah's oil, in simple words, Kabbalah's oil will never inspire you. It's not inspiring. And if it's not inspiring, it means it doesn't engage the heart. And so you're not the mind. On the contrary, Kabbalah's oil is despite. I don't want, and I don't feel, and I hate this, and this is a nuisance, and can I get out of this somehow? Somebody save me from all of this. All of these obligations. That's what Kabbalah's oil deals with. That's Amalek. Just get me out of here. Not only get me out of here, you're making me nervous with all of your talk of spirituality and godliness. Like, he's not satisfied. Amalek, leave me alone. I want you got to stop this. Why? Because it is this guilt, ultimately. It's to silence the voice. Yeah, Amalek, even Amalek, at the end of the day, the Abish's creation. So there's a guilt even at the Amalek level. So that's why he can't stand the whole discussion. He can't stand somebody else being a chassid. Okay, you want to live your life of indulgence? Fine. What does it bother you that this guy's a chassid? Amalek can't stand it. It makes him feel guilty. So he wants to silence and shut down the whole thing. He jumps into the proverbial hot bath. That's the mashal of Rashi. Rashi pshut Hashem mikra. What's the hot bath? Koch and excitement. Somebody else is excited. So what does it bother you? So you go live your life. No, he's got to jump into the bath and cool it down and tell everybody to shut up. And this is, mock it. He just mocks it. Throws doubts. It's any ammunition he can. Doubting, sveikas, and doubting is the best ammunition because it says, well, maybe yes. Amalek begin matri safek. You can't say it's not true. Maybe it's not true. Maybe, Seichel is always entertaining. Maybe. So that's a really good way to cool the ardor. Yeah, but maybe not. Well, I got to say, maybe not. So for that, it's Amalek and Yid Kabbalah. So, again, engagement in ideology and disease. He doesn't not interested in that, and he knows that the ideology is true and it's wonderful. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want you to talk about it. I don't want anywhere near me. Then again, the chassid bothers him. You see someone else that's doing an avodah, can't stand it. Can't stand it. He'll do everything he can to bring him down. Of course, he's clever enough not to confront the person openly, but just a little ridicule here, a little mocking there. Job is done. So for that, Amalek indeed Kabbalah soil. But to transform the heart, legitimately, the heart wants to feel, and the mind wants to understand. That you need to understand and feel. That's the avodah of Ben. Can't transform the 7 nations of the world with Kabbalah soil. The 7 nations of the world, the emotions of the heart, Nefesh Bahamis, have to be inspired. And waiting to be inspired. It has to be Avanda Vasogan, and spread Chassidus, and learn it, and live it, and be an example. And the people are inspired by that. But people are only inspired by that if they're not defined by Amalek. And it always lurks below the surface somewhere, but practically speaking, there's a Shiva Umbos and there's Amalek. Most of the world is not Amalek. Most of the world is looking for something. Amalek is the rudder below it all, looking below the surface. Yeah, it is somewhat clear. The mile of Ben over Evet, critical mile.
So the Ben starts, that way the Ben starts. The Lord of love. But we're saying Reishis Goyim Amalek, this is like the beginning of Avodas to
No, Reishis Amalek means that he's the beginning of Klippa. In a way, we do.
Doesn't it start there with Kabbalah?
It kind of does. It starts at Meida Ani. Starts with a general Meida Ani. Foundation has to be Kabbalah soil, but that's not a Kabbalah soil. That is, you're not in a war in Meida Ani. You're in a war with Amalek. Meida Ani is, thank God, you're still half asleep, so you need Sahara there, the body's a little bit tired. So right there, it's Meida Ani, Kabbalah soil there. So the foundation is there, but the Milchama is in the second parsha. Right? And Milchama happens after the first parsha. You're inspired, you learned. Now we're going to deal with the core resistance. I can do it, right?
Exactly.
It's hard to say it every day. You verbalize it, articulate it.
Sometimes it'll be more.
Clearly, how many years are you saying that?
Well, he told me when I was 17, so 10 years.
I've spread the story. I want you to know. I hope you don't mind. I'm sure you don't mind.
Now the cat's out of the bag.
Huh? Cat's out of the bag.
Everybody knows my secret now. Nothing left to say.
Friends, I'm really looking forward to Purim night. I'm really determined that it should be h'tשכ. But I'm hoping everybody's not just waltzing in it, but toiling with the Maamer, the h'tשכ, the avodah, all of it. It's all one thing. Das Elyon, das Tachten. Okay. V'zeh, continuing, Gewalt, the time. V'zeh, gam kol ha'sachilek ben avodas Shaul, avodas David. So this is the difference between Shaul and David. Shaul, of course, was the first king of Israel, and we all know the story that the monarchy was torn, literally, wrested from him. His cloak tore. You all know the story. That's because he failed to obliterate Amalek when he had the chance. He wanted to bring karbonis, on the contrary, from the best, the choice of Amalek's flock. There was a moment of hesitation. There was a moment of hesitation. Tehine, what was Shaul? Shaul, halach acharatam. This is a lashon Chassidus. First quoted in Torah. Literally, he went after reason. He was governed by reason. And we're not blaming him because that's who he is. The first Shaul that we encounter in the Torah, in Parshas Vayishlach, it's not the same Shaul. These are Esau's descendants. Shaul merachayv v'sanor. He came from the expansiveness of the river. What does this mean? Rachayv v'sanor is bina. What's bina? Bina is expansive and analysis. The river that flows and expands as it flows. The Zohar says, what is the expansive river? That is bina. Chachma is in a kuda, bittel. But bin is already, I understand and analyze. Binyan, from the word binyan, one of its meanings, to build an whole edifice. And that's critical avodah. It said, it's only through expanding and understanding that boim la'avodas da'av v'hafta. That's the first parsha of Kriya Shema. It's Shema Yisrael, understand. And that leads to the love. That's pulchan, the kepulchan, the rechmusa. The Zohar said there's no service of God, no avodah like the avodah of love. Yad ava yisel yoina, and he reaches the highest levels of ava. That's hey yilah. That's the first hey of what? Of Yudke Vavke. But he stopped there. That defined him. He was the child, the ben, the loving, rapturous, inspired, ideological. That's what I'm going. Ideological. Idealistic is what I'm looking for. Idealistic servant of God. But that's not enough for Amalek, for the 7 nations of the world. Shaul, that was the avodah that's required. You're talking matzliach. But now you're confronting Amalek, the root of it all. And for this, Achyesh Gam Oifen Avodah de David. Now we need the avodah of David HaMelech, about whom the pasuk says, the end of Shmuel Beis, at the very end of Shmuel Beis, the end of David's life. David addresses and speaks, and the pasuk introduces him as follows: Ne'um HaGever Hukam Al. These are the words of the Gever, the man, Hukam Al, who was established above all. The king, that's a simple meaning. Says the Medrash, the word Al can be read also oil, yoke. Shehekim oil shel Torah. That what's the praise of the pasuk is praising in that David HaMelech established for Klal Yisrael the yoke of Torah. Oil dafke. Not that he introduced Torah study per se, but the yoke of Torah study. That's the bittul. Kedisa bebrachas. Like the Gemara says in brachas, Ashri Mishi Godel B'Torah V'Amoli B'Torah. Fortunate is the one who grows in Torah and toils in Torah. And the question is, the L'chayra, Ma Yisofad Amoli B'Torah Al Godel B'Torah. If you're growing in Torah, don't you toil? What's added by the toil? So it's not something intellectual, this word toil. That's not what's being added. That's in Godel, a heart of it in Torah. That's intellectually to understand. What the Gemara is adding by saying, fortunate is the one who grows and toils. The toil is not intellectual property, but rather, fortunate is the one who grows in Torah. That's talk intellectual toil. But that is in such a way, he sees he's growing, and that's how it should be. And that's part of the avodah. You got to see success in your learning. You're working hard, and you master the text, and you go deeper, and you add another blood gemara, another Maamer. Then there's a higher level, which is shamoli b'Torah. It's a yoke. It's bittul. She's a etzlik in shel omal v'aveda kosher. In this sense, it's difficult. Kisher la'oil, like the ox to the yoke. V'haino, meaning shegamali b'dat Torah gufein mitzias la'atzmai. Even in his learning, it's a tremendous. He's learning. He's matzlich. He's the Talmud Chacham. He's machadish chidushim. But he's not a bit. It's all you. It's all your desire, not feeding his own identity. And that's what David HaMelech declared. The whole story there, with the revolt of Avshalom, his son, and Tzaddik, the Kohen Gadol. David had to flee. A terrible life. He had to flee, and Tzaddik brings out the Aron HaKodesh to be with him, and David tells him, take it back, thank you, but take back the Aron HaKodesh, and says these words, Im koi yoymar lo chafatzti bach. And if God will say, I don't want you, hineni, I'm ready. If God wants me, good. If God says, no, hineni, I'm ready. And avoid that means for the person. Simply, God is saying it for you. God says, I don't want. God's saying, I'm rejecting David, so he accepts it. In avoid that means that even if the person confronts something which is hateful, this is applying now to the self. I don't want. Hineni. I'm going to do it. I hate it. He still does it. You understand the taich? It's not the part of the taich. He's applying it in avodah personally. A Yid is ready to do it, but in the same way, listen to the words, like something I desire, with the same devotion. That's what David said. God said. David said to David, if you want me, I'm here, and if you don't want me to say, I'm here in the same way. I accept it the same way. Okay, let's conclude here. We're in the middle, but
finish the line.
Finish the line. It's a long line.
Fill the bezehu. That's the Indian.
All right. This is an avodah when there's no benefit at all personally. One of us that he understands or rots and he wants tainug, his gishmak, because he stands, it means in a state of hineni, I'm yours. He's ready and prepared. Hineni means in a state of preparedness to do all that's being asked of him, whether he wants it or hates it. Words. That's Kabbalah Sale. That's Kabbalah Sale. That's avodah of David. That's the avodah that vanquishes Amalek.
The Leicha Fatzi is going on.
Huh?
The Leicha Fatzi is going.
Yeah, he touches Leicha Fatzi himself in avodah. And incredible today's story.